I'm sure the following legend needs no introduction. The legend, known as the killer in the back seat, is in fact a classic, and one of the most well-known urban legends out there. This legend has been around for quite a long time. In fact, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that it has been around since the 60s. So, without further ado, let's talk about an all-time classic, the killer in the back seat. There are countless variants of this legend, but by far the most well-known probably goes as followed. One late night, a college student was returning home from school, just as she did every day. She lived a while off the beaten path, about 3 hours away from school, but she was a studious and determined student, so the long drive never bothered her. Anyhow, when she was driving home on the long deserted highway, she noticed that she was running low on gas. That being the case, she pulled over to the nearest gas station to fill up her tank. She went inside the gas station and asked the attendant for some chips, a drink, and to fill up her tank. She went outside and the first thing she noticed was a huge truck pulling into the station. She filled her tank with gas, but just before she would take off, she decided to head back into the gas station and grab another snack for later. She got back in her car and made her way home. The drive went as usual for the first couple of minutes, until bright lights flooded her car. She was a bit startled, but it was night, so she assumed the driver just wanted to be safe. Strangely though, the headlights would turn off soon after. She took a quick glance and looked at her rear mirror. It was the truck she saw earlier. At this point, she wasn't really worried or anything of the sort. Maybe they were both heading the same direction. A few seconds later, her car would be flooded by the truck's rays yet again. This time, she noticed that the truck was a bit closer. He was tailgating her, and appeared to be dangerously close. She began to speed up, but the truck followed suit. The truck would then follow a pattern of shutting off its lights and turning them back on again. The strobing left the student uneasy, and each time the lights would turn off, she noticed that the truck was closer. At this point, she began to get nervous, but her house wasn't too far from where they were. As soon as she came up to her driveway, she stomped down on the acceleration and sped to her house. She jumped out of her car and ran into her home. She yelled out to her parents, calling for help, shouting at the top of her lungs to call 911. Her parents did, of course, and in no time, the local police were at her residence. When they arrived, the terrifying truth would soon be revealed. The police arrested the truck driver, only for him to keep on resisting and shouting, "I'm not the guy you want! Check her car! There's someone in the back!" The police checked the backseat of the student's car, and they found a man with a knife, tucked away, hidden just outside of view. Apparently, the truck driver saw the man sneak his way into her car back at the gas station. The truck driver followed the student in fear for her safety. Every time he would see the man pop his head in her car, he would turn on his high beams hoping to scare him, and it worked. Police arrested the crazed man in the back seat, and the college student thanked the truck driver. However, since that day, she would always check her back seat before getting into her car. This legend is one I'm sure we've all heard at some point. It's actually a pretty great one, all things considered, so much so that it inspired several scenes in horror movies like Halloween and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And if you're wondering where you've heard this spooky tale before, well, it was actually included in the first Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book, High Beams, one of my personal favorites. Though, at this point, you might be wondering, is the story real? Well, actually yes, it is. Get this, something similar actually happened back in 1964 in New York City. On one fateful night, a man was getting some coffee and donuts when an intruder would actually sneak into his back seat as the car was left unattended. Ironically, the man who snuck into the car had no idea that it belonged to a police officer, and he sat there waiting patiently for the owner of the car to come back, so that he could kill them and take the car. When the owner came back, he opened his back doors to set down the box of donuts, only to realize someone was there waiting for him. The man with a knife. Without hesitation, he shot him dead in his tracks, or I suppose dead in the back seat is more appropriate. There have also been other news stories of women who had left their car doors unlocked, only for someone to stay hidden in the back and later assault them. So with all that out of the way, let this story be a cautionary tale. If you drive or even own a car, before you head anywhere, always lock your doors, and always check the back seat before you get in. You don't want anything bad to happen to you.